we go ahead and get started? It looks like we have a decent amount of people on, and we're a few minutes after 12:30. So we'll go ahead and we'll get started. So just a quick thank you for everyone that participated in Giving Day 2020 yesterday. We surpassed the goal of 1,500 donors with 2,831 donors. So just a thank you for everyone's support, not only yesterday, but every day. But today we have on our Dog Talk our head volleyball coach, Dave Zelenock, and he was named the head coach for the Citadel back in February of 2018 after serving 5 years as the head coach at Tennessee Tech. So Coach, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So I think most people have been on these Dog Talks before, but just a quick recap. We had questions that were submitted by y'all, and then we also came up with a few questions. So don't feel shy about also, there is a chat option. And if you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat there, and we'll do our best to get to those. But just kind of jumping right into what is currently happening. Coach, if you don't mind, so our roster is pretty geographically diverse. How does that go into, and how does that play into communicating with the team with everybody spread out? How are you handling that? How is the team handling that, players? So how's everybody doing?
I mean, the girls are obviously disappointed with spring getting cut short and, missing all their friends and having to scatter around the country. The biggest thing, is communication. It's hard. These Zoom meetings, this is casual and fun, but it's taxing, because when you're with a normal person, it's easier to talk to. It's hard to emote on these. So people get done and they just feel tired from all these Zoom meetings and stuff. And for us, we've got kids from California to South Carolina. So they're all over in Charlestown and Puerto Rico. And just the time zones alone, trying to coordinate those things and get everyone on the same page. It's a little bit of a challenge. And when they go home, they've got other expectations, not just with school. They've got jobs and, other things that they've got to do. So it's a little bit of a challenge to get everyone on the same page, but it just, for us as coaches, we try to be as flexible as we can with times and stuff like that. Sometimes it's not really hard fast with times. It's all right. Well, yeah, the outsides are going at this time, but this one can't. So fine. Her meeting is just with her, and we're kind of doing the exact same thing we did with this group, but it's a little bit later and it's just a one-on-one with her. And that's just the way it has to be. But we're a military school and everything's very regimented, but we've had to be a lot more lax with a lot of things that we do.
Sure. I guess that's a great lead into just how has COVID affected your process? I mean, obviously we just had graduation or virtual graduation. And so I think everyone has changed up what those processes look like in training during the spring and moving into the summer. So can you go into what your processes are like for coming up this summer with
Sure.
players and the team?
Luckily, I'm big into planning anyway. So I'm always like a months out person. So that's kind of easy for me planning things. Obviously, no one really planned for this, but it's easy for me to kind of get in the mud and figure out what we're going to do, get a plan together and kind of put it into action. So, when it was like, all right, we're not coming back for spring break. All right, let's sit down, work it out. Here's the plan. Let's get into action. Our administration with Kathy and Mike, it was really easy to talk to them and figure out what can we do. And they just said, here's the things that we want. We put it in, and it's been pretty easy to get things done with them when we know answers. Some things, when are we coming back? How's it going to look? Those things we don't know, and we just roll with the punches. But for the most part, it's been pretty easy. Like, I know everyone has a different answer for that, but for volleyball at least, it's been pretty easy, mostly because the people above me made it easy on us. Like, we just said, hey, can we do this? And they said yes or no, and we just proceeded. If that makes sense.
It does.
Sure.
It does. I think, it's everyone is sort of in the same boat. It's interesting because I think that it's rare that you have a situation that, and I think first time ever that everyone's dealt with sort of the same thing. So, you touched on being a planner. So how has that changed plans for the fall? Like, I think that's a question we got a couple of times from fans, just kind of, looking ahead at the fall, what kind of changes do you anticipate, or what are you kind of thinking as far as planning for the training?
For training specifically, so this is the longest that, in any sport, these kids have gone without playing or, training, practicing anything. So for us specifically, we're not too concerned with packing on weight. Like most of the time, kids right now would be doing heavy Olympic weightlifting and stuff like that. That's not really what we're too concerned with. We're concerned with tendons. Muscles are easy. We can get muscle back really, really fast. We've got a great strength and conditioning program. We've got great facilities, renovated, all that. That stuff's great. But for us, it's the volume of work. We need to be able to jump and land 100 times a practice and not tear a tendon. So that's kind of what we challenged Brock and Coach D. That's what we need to focus on. So moving into their next summer phase, it's not get in the gym and, squat 200 pounds. It's cutting, jumping, landing. It's all that stuff. So we don't really even need weight rooms right now through the summer. We need our girls jumping and landing a bunch so that when we get in the gym, the coaches can actually do reps and work on things and not have to have a jump counter, a swing counter working on those things. We don't want to be limited to, well, it's day one, we can only jump 50 times. We can't work on much with 50 jumps in a day. That's not too much. So we need to get our volume up of what we're actually capable of, because we don't know, what our start date's going to look like. As of right now, everything looks like we're starting August 10th. That's what everyone's hoping for right now, but who knows? We could lose the first week and, have to play pretty quickly, or they could cut our season and they can move things around. We don't really know. So we're just kind of planning to be able to play right away and make sure that we're not injured. That's our number one goal, is to make sure none of our kids get injured, because we packed on too much too fast. That's from the training thing. From the, what the fall could look like. Right now, the SoCon is planning to play a full fall schedule, which is phenomenal. I think that's one of the great things about the SoCon is we're all busable. There's no flights anywhere. We can take a bus everywhere in our conference, which is great. The Power Five's the Power Five, and they got to deal with what they have to. But, I just talked to a coach yesterday who their conference, and I can't say it because it's not released, their conference isn't having a conference schedule. And they're like, hey, we got to find games. They don't have a conference schedule at all for the year. And people are scrambling for matches. And that's one thing that we can at least fall back on, is we know that we have a conference schedule, because, Wofford's up the road and Furman's up the road. Like, these teams are really close. So that's a nice thing for us to fall back. We know we're playing those teams that we're used to playing.
Yeah, it's definitely nice to be at an advantage when it comes to the SoCon.
Yeah.
You touched on it. The weight room recently saw a renovation. Tell us a little bit. I know that it was spring break when sort of all this stepped in, but what are your thoughts on the redo?
I haven't really been up there much. I mean, I've learned about it from everyone else on this call. I watch Twitter and Instagram, and I talk to Coach D and I talk to Brock, and I hear what's going on up there and I see the pictures, but I haven't really gone over there. Obviously not an athlete, so I don't need to go in there very much. I think it's great. Before it even got renovated, it was a great place for our athletes to go. High energy. The amount of things that they crammed into the square footage of that room was ridiculous. Like, you go in there and there's just every square foot, there was something going on, which was remarkable, because I've been at schools that had legitimately 10 times the square footage and not as much productivity going on. So to see what they're capable of, and it's just their planning, it's remarkable. This is my 5th stop, I think. And every other place I've gone to strength and conditioning, and I've had to kind of supervise or send an assistant coach to supervise or whatever it may be. I don't even go. I don't need to. It's so good over there. The gains that we make and the improvements and the energy over there, it's a great place. And I think with the renovation and the things that they're capable of doing over there now, it's just going to be even better for our athletes.
Absolutely. It looks really good. It's the same but different. I mean, the space, obviously there's a finite amount of space, but the redo and what they've done to take advantage of every square inch. It really is. It looks really good. Speaking of new things, you have some new staff. Is that right?
Yeah, he's in here somewhere.
Yeah, let's see if we can't get him.
There he is. He's waving.
Yeah, let's unmute you real quick here.
Fresh hair and everything.
Yes. Hey, Jim, you're unmuted. Yep, you're unmuted. Okay. Go ahead and introduce yourself if you don't mind, please.
For sure. Yeah, my name's Tim Ubeck. I started in March here at the Citadel. I came from Purdue University and Texas Tech before that. Pretty much I got here in South Carolina. I went into lockdown. So it's been a fun few months, but I'm excited to be here.
Now, Coach was telling me the other day that y'all have how much time in person have you guys spent together the majority of the time? How has that been? How have you guys been communicating?
Lots of texts. Luckily, we both like texting a lot. It's easier for the both of us. Some phone calls, but in person, we've had maybe an hour together since being hired. But like I said, it's really easy to communicate with Dave and just text back and forth. And we can see these girls a lot, so there's plenty to talk about and recruiting and stuff. So it's been fun. It's been different, but fun. Sure.
It's definitely different times. It really is. So, well, welcome aboard. We're glad to have you here and looking forward to meeting you in person. So are you excited for this upcoming fall?
Can't wait. Just got off the phone with the pin hitters and our middles, and it's just got me pretty jacked up right now. So I'm ready to go, but we'll see one day at a time.
Yes, indeed. I think we all are. So, well, welcome aboard. We're really glad to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So, and also something interesting project that we have going on over at McAllister Fieldhouse are, the new seats that we have going in there. Coach, are you looking forward to that this upcoming fall?
Yeah, actually, I just was in the gym, 20 minutes before we started, just checking out the progress. Yeah, I mean, I don't get to sit in them, but I'm sure our fans will enjoy them. I'm sure my wife and kids will enjoy sitting in them. Not that she sits down during matches very often. She's usually pacing. So if anyone comes to the game, you look up top, you see the woman walking back and forth, muttering and cursing under her breath. That's my wife. But yeah, the seats that Mike showed us, they look awesome. They look really nice. I think it's going to be a really big enhancement for our fans for all the sports.
Sure.
And the cadets will enjoy them when they come and, have to listen to the commandant and the president. They get to sit in those. They'll be excited too.
Now, one of the questions that we got was just about matches and things along those lines. And it was an interesting question. Do you see invitationals for volleyball disappearing and going more towards individual matches?
I don't think so, only because it's not cost effective. Volleyball outside of a very small amount of schools, you're talking Nebraska's, Penn State's, Texas, it's not a revenue generating sport. So you've got to get the most bang for your buck. It's not very cost effective for us to go, far away. Like we're going to Charlotte first weekend. It's not very cost effective for us to go there, play one match and come home. We've got to go there and play 3 or 4 matches to make it worth the bus, the hotel, the food, all the stuff that it takes to get there and back. Otherwise, it becomes a very regional sport where you can only play teams within your own sport. Nebraska, they have an arena just for volleyball that sells out every single match, 10,000 seats. And, that's the mecca of volleyball. That's different. But I think that's what everyone wants to be. But no, I think invitationals still have to keep going until volleyball kind of overtakes women's basketball as the top sport for NCAA.
Right.
It is overall. It's the number 1 women's sport in high school for participation and all that stuff, but it just hasn't taken that leap as far as like TV viewership and dollars pumped in yet.
Kind of along the same lines as what we were talking about earlier, do you think that volleyball's at an advantage for practices, given that there's limited contact, practices, games, since it's, not as close contact or contact as other sports? What are your thoughts on that?
I think that's an interesting question for sure. A lot of people get into volleyball because it's not basketball, because you're not up in someone's face and you're not, grinding, punching against them, all that stuff. That net, generally keeps it civil. I've seen a few fights. It's pretty rare, but you still get pretty close, and if we're talking in relation to the disease going on right now, when you're at the net, I mean, it's less than a foot with a person on the other side of the net. So I think it becomes kind of irrelevant talking about an airborne disease. And then when talking about your team, you see men's and women's volleyball, after every single play, they all go to the middle and they're all, I mean, within an arm's reach of each other, yelling in each other's faces and screaming and hitting each other. I mean, so it all becomes kind of moot, compared to basketball. Yeah, it's not slamming into each other, but it's still breathing in each other's faces and screaming in each other's faces. So it becomes pretty similar pretty quickly.
Sure. This is another question that we got. What do you think you bring to coaching that sets you apart from other coaches?
Oh gosh. Who asked that question? I can't remember who. I thought you showed me the thing. I think that was Enderly, if she's on here or not. That makes me very uncomfortable, that question, because anyone who knows me, even this interview makes me uncomfortable. I am not a huge fan of talking about myself. I'll talk about the program all day and the sport. Like, that stuff's awesome. But talking about me, it makes me super uncomfortable. When it comes to training, there's lots of great training. So I'm not going to say I'm great at, I'm the best at this, or, a lot of coaches care about their players. So I'm not going to say I'm better than this. I think maybe one thing that's a little different, I'm still in contact with players from 17 years ago when I started coaching college. And again, that doesn't make it unique. I know coaches who do that 30 years later, but, I still try and help them, even players who we weren't, super tight. Like, I had a player who it ended badly. Like, it was not a great ending to her career, like kicked off the team. But I saw she was in trouble, via social media, and reached out and tried to find a way to help her. And, I try to do those things. I don't appear to be very caring, especially if you don't know me. I look very stern and I've got angry attack eyebrows. I get that. But I think what, some people might not understand is that I actually do care more than a lot of coaches about helping athletes grow outside of the gym. So maybe that would be the thing. It's a little bit harder to do here because their time is so valuable, but I really try to, outside of the gym, challenge them to get better at, becoming a person and not just an athlete and an academic. Like, learn how to change a tire, balance a checkbook. Like, those are things that I really like to help people learn how to do. Here, it's something that we struggle to find time to do, but at other places I've been a little bit more successful at.
Sure. Well, I guess that, that kind of brings up a good question. Like, what are some of the leadership components that you've implemented? Honor, duty, respect is obviously an ethos at the Citadel. So what are some of the leadership components that you implement for our student athletes in your program, just to progress them as they go along in their career?
So we sit down and we talk to them about leadership styles, and we've got a leadership school here, so I can't compete with what they do. Those are professionals at that thing. But we talk about sort of their natural styles, because everyone has a preference. A leader by example, a vocal leader, and like Charlize is a great example because everyone knows who she is if you've come to watch us play. And she says, I want to be a leader by example. Okay, no problem. So all that means is, sure, I'm going to hold you to that. You want to be a leader by example. You don't get to take a play off, a day off, anything. So if she's in practice and she's dogging it, I'm going to jump her a little bit. I'm going to, hey, what are you doing here? And that's what I'm going to hold her accountable for. That doesn't mean she's off the hook and she never has to say a word and be, a vocal leader. That's the thing that we're going to bring along over the course of her career. But initially, that's the thing that she says that she is. That's what we're going to hold her accountable for in the beginning. Just like a kid who says, I'm a vocal leader. All right, that's fine. The day that you're having a bad day and you clam up, that's the thing I'm going to jump you for. Like, hey, you can't clam up just because you're having a bad day. You're the vocal leader. You got to do this. Now, I'm going to try and bring her along as the leader by example too. So hopefully by the end of their career, they can do both, because it's kind of like the learning styles. I'm a visual learner. Yeah, okay, sure. That's what you prefer. You've got to be able to do it all. You don't get to choose in life exactly what the thing you want. You got to be able to adapt. So that's what, by the time they're done here, I want them to be able to do both things, all things. So That's kind of with the leadership things. That's what we try to do. Bring them along so they're able to do all the things. Obviously, we want them to do what they're comfortable with because that's what they're going to be best at. But I need you to be able to do both things when called upon. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
You can ask a little question and I can ramble for 10 minutes.
No.
That's a specialty.
So I guess, one of the questions that I'm always curious about, particularly, at the Citadel, what are some things about making a good first impression, both as a program and just as an individual? What are some of the things that are important for you in making a good first impression?
Well, I would say handshake, but apparently the handshake is dead. So we're going to have to rethink that. I don't know what's going to take the place of the handshake moving forward. I think just speaking clearly and concise and honestly with people is the best thing that you can do. When I was younger, and I know I'm still look young sometimes and act young sometimes, I would get accused of being a little too blunt. But I think the best thing you can do is to always tell people the truth, directly, not beat around the bush, and not hide behind things. Just tell them the truth right away. And I think that's the best thing you can do. You don't have to be unkind in doing it, but I think that's the best way you can set a good tone with people is by letting them know right away that you're an honest person.
Sure. Absolutely. So, just kind of going with some of the things that you're talking about with leadership and just being on the Citadel campus. I think everybody on this chat is familiar with the Citadel. But what do you think are some of our biggest strengths, both just maybe as a campus and perhaps as a volleyball program? What are some of our biggest strengths?
As far as the campus, it's the name. I've got it on my shirt. It's the name. Anywhere I go, if I have a hat on 90% of the time, but people see the name and they're, it means something, especially this side of the country, especially the South. But even here in California, we were in Mexico and people saw the hat and they're like, oh, the Citadel. Like, it means something everywhere you go. And that's a really cool thing. So that's the first thing is just that. Especially, I have a lot of military in my family. It means a lot to military people too. But outside of the military people, it's recognized. Like, it's a big thing. The campus, it means a lot to the community. I don't live right here on campus. Sometimes we should have a cot in the office, but I'm like 13, 15 miles out. But even, way out there, it means a big deal. Even in my little neighborhood, 3 people on my street have a relative who went to the Citadel just on my street. So just the ties are just huge that this school, and it's such a small school. I went to a really big school, 38,000 students there a year. This place is 2,800, and everywhere I go, I can hit a Citadel grad. It's crazy. The ties are just crazy to this place. And what it means, just Giving Day yesterday, following along with that, that's crazy. A school this small to have a reach that big, it's just not something that you can explain to most people, unless you've been here. And, this is a place that I've known about since I was 14. And I didn't really understand until I got here and read the guide on. And then I read the blue book and I was like, until you're really here and understand it. And then you start to give people directions. You're like, oh, turn left at the jet. That's that type of stuff is just so unique. I know there's other military academies and I'm not going to disparage them, but this is the only place that is like this place. And I have friends who work at some of them and we will argue endlessly that this is the only place like this place.
It is very unique. It is very unique. And to your point, it's what's great about it.
Yes.
So we got 2 very similar questions, and we'll go ahead and kind of ask them at the same time because they might be one and the same. But talk a little bit about your favorite moment that you've had at the Citadel, and then also a question was, what has been your favorite match? So you can take those if they're the same, or they interwoven. So the question again, what's your favorite moment at the Citadel and what's your favorite match?
I'll split them just because I'll keep volleyball separate. Favorite moment, I kind of have 2. My first rec day here was, I just got here, but just seeing rec day was just eye-opening, and I didn't know what was going on. It was just, that was a lot. But outside of that, last year's VMI basketball win was my favorite moment because I have my kids with me and they're a handful. We usually sit right outside my office in those seats where it's kind of on the visitor side, but it's up above them. But it's where I can see everything. And I can see where my players always sit. I can see our bench really well because I like to watch our basketball staff. I like to see our bench. I like to see what's going on. Like, I don't pretend to know anything about basketball. Like, I know you dribble. Like, I don't know the sport very well. So I'm not watching the game very much. I'm watching what's going on and all that stuff. So I'm watching the game and the theatrics and all the stuff that's going on. And I'm watching, my girls cheering and that layup at the last second and everyone stormed the court and just all of that. It was just so cool. I mean, I was recording it the whole time, just, the grandeur of the moment. It was just a really cool experience. It was a really cool thing. And then my favorite match is kind of same thing. I have two I can't choose from. It's like, asking me to pick between my kids. They're both similar. Last year or 2 years ago, the win against Western Carolina, because it was our first ever playoff win in the history of the program. That's a big deal. And in that win, we ended up on SportsCenter. I don't know if you remember that or not. It was like
yes.
Shar laid out for a ball, Mel kicked it over, and it was a set point. So the other team stopped playing, and Mel kicked the ball over, and we won the set, and we went on to win the match. And like even within that match, there were some silly things that went on. But to make it in the top 5 in SportsCenter, in that was cool. But then this year at home, we got to host, and that was the first time ever hosting a playoff match, and we won it. It was against Chat, and we had lost to them the weekend before in 5 at their place, and then we beat them 3-0 pretty convincingly. But again, more important, there were 900 cadets there, and they were losing their mind. And it was the first set was kind of close, but I think from like 15 on, I just looked over to him, Sean. I was like, "Yeah, we're gonna win." I didn't need to do anything from then on. Like, other than turn in the lineup, I was like, yeah, I'm going to sit here and watch this. This is fun. And that was all. I just had a really good seat for the rest of the day. So those are my two.
Yeah, those were good matches. It was a good BMI basketball game. I mean, legend. I feel like that's, history books type of game.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah, and the matches that y'all had. Let's see. You kind of touched on it, but one of the questions that we got was, how are we going to get more cadets and fans coming out to matches? I can touch on that a little bit as well, just being marketing and promotions. And, we put together a plan for all of our sports, but we utilize some of the tools that we have, like our video board and other assets that we have. But that also includes, cadets and cadet helpers, and just making sure that we have buy-in within the Corps and companies and support there. It's kind of a full circle type of effort. We implement things that we think that the cadets will enjoy. And when we say we think, it's things that we've either done before, or we may survey and ask cadets, what do you want to see? What are some things? And some things are realistic, some things aren't. But we try and see how we can meet those efforts and make sure that it's something that they'll enjoy, because I never was, and I'm not a cadet, so I can't speak to what would entice a 18 to 21-year-old cadet to come to a volleyball match. So we have cadet helpers that they brainstorm, they help us make sure, what do you think about this? How would this go? What are your thoughts on that? Let's brainstorm a little bit. Let's chat about it. We also try to use assets around campus. There's TVs that have messages go on them. We put on that. Social media is a big asset for us as well. Not every single platform fits for what we're trying to promote. So we try to utilize the platform that works the best. We get, for volleyball specifically, and Coach, you can talk a little bit about this as well, Instagram is a great asset for us, in that we can show kind of the FOMO, or what someone might be able to anticipate coming out to a match, or what they might be able to expect. So those are just some of the ways that we're working to get cadets in particular out, working with the commandant's office, that's huge too. That's always something that's at the forefront of every single sport, is how can we, collaborate with just cadets and have them come out and support athletes and matches, and it's a big community effort. So we utilize our social media and then also the assets that we have available. We utilize promotions that try and make it fun, regardless of what happens on the court. We try to have fun, and that is the name of the game, is making it a fun atmosphere. So,
Yeah.
Coach, anything you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, on our side, we had a big freshman group with 7 kids. Part of our effort with recruiting is to get kids who are, a little bit more military friendly. We talked about bringing in more 3-dimensional. They're not just here for 2 of the things; they want all 3 of the pillars. And I think of our 7, 4 of them are for sure commissioning, and then there's another 2 who are, on the fence or probably going to. And a big thing for us is they want to get ranked. They want to move up in the Corps, and I think that's the best thing that'll help us as they get ranked, and we get seen as a program that the Corps respects more because our athletes are involved in all those things. Then they're going to come more. I think it helps when the Corps feels like they're respected, they come. So I think that's going to help us a lot, that our kids are really serious about what they're doing over there. So, academically, yeah, we got a 3.4, which is great. It's under our team goal of 3.5, but that's fine. It's still good. We want to win ball games, and we want people who are serious about the course, and that's what we're trying to do right now. So I think they'll all sort of blend into a perfect storm, and that'll help us get cadets. And then, like I told you, it's America. People love a free T-shirt and a free hot dog. So we're going to keep trying to do those things. We gave away a PlayStation. That helped a lot. I think you did. I never get to see them because it's always in intermission, but I think you did the wing eating thing, and I saw a very large crowd, and it was very loud. It smelled great. So that was good. So I think, we're all adults trying to figure out what does a 18 to 20-year-old person want to do, and we can ask them, but they sometimes they give us answers. Again, they're unrealistic. They're like, "Oh, free car, free tuition. Come on, man, help me out." But
Right.
we try to throw things that we can at them and that are realistic. But then our match falls on an open weekend. What are you gonna do? There's not much that we can't do. If it's an open weekend and football's away, and it's like there's not much we can do outside of throwing T-shirts at them and hoping for the best sometimes. And we're not big fans of hope as a game plan, but sometimes that's all we have when the circumstances are against us.
Yes, agreed. So I think that the name of the game at the end is it's a collaborative effort, and it's a community. It's not one magic pill. It's not one magic element that it takes. It's a lot of little things. So kind of, along the
I
same
do see your
lines,
question, by the way. I will answer it, just so you know.
kind of along the same lines, with just attendance and things along those like that. What are some of the program goals that we have? GPAs recently came out, and volleyball is always a leader with that. They're probably some of the most brilliant athletes that we have, and I'm very proud of our volleyball players. So talk a little bit about some of the program goals, both academic and athletic, if you don't mind, please.
Academically, 3.5 was our goal this year, and he'll be on here soon, but our goal is always to beat soccer. That's just the reality. We're competitive. Volleyball and soccer, and Lori will probably say golf should be in the mix too, but it's just those 2 sports are always around the country, always kind of battle it out for those spots. But we knew with 7 freshmen and what freshman year is like at the Citadel that we were going to take a hit this year. So putting it at 3.5 we thought was still high, but we thought we could get it. But yeah, first semester we struggled, a little bit more than we thought we would. And second semester, moving online, it helped some people, it hurt some people. but yeah, 3-4, we came out okay there. We want to get back to where, you know, we were last year, which was 3-7, and that's our goal. And, you know, not that anyone at the Citadel is, but it's not like anyone's majoring in basket weaving. We've got, you know, intelligence and medical bio, like just smart kid stuff, you know, no one's messing around here. So to pull that off with 20 credits in season is insane. You know, I talked to a lot of coaches around the country, and they're, how many credits? 12. I'm like, oh yeah, my libero's got 21. Don't worry. Like, and it's a nursing major, you know, like it's serious stuff. And we pull off these grades, and it's great. So yeah, academically, we want to keep doing it there. Athletically, we want to take a big step forward. The SoCon, you know, recently released, only the top 4 teams are going this year. So we got to make a big jump. I think once volleyball hasn't finished last in the SoCon, so we got to make a big move this year. And it kind of, you know, it's tough because what we've been selling is kind of the learning. You know, when you take a history class, they give you the book and they don't give you the final at the same time and say, take the test. You take all semester, and at the end you take the final. That's what the SoCon is. You know, everyone goes to the tournament. You've really only got to be good 3 days a row at the end. So that's what, you know, if you look at us throughout the season, we get better as the season goes. And that's why the last couple matches of the year, like, oh, wow, they look like they can play volleyball. We you know, won our first round games both years, and we've gotten better and better. Well, we can't do that this year. We've got to change the way we train and the way we think. We've got to be good right out of the gates. Like, every single match really, really matters. We've got to find a way into that top 4. So our goals this year are to get in that top 4. We can't take a match off. We don't have time to say, oh, well, we'll learn from this one. Nope, we got to go. We can't let off the gas at all this year. So that's going to be tough because we've been kind of instilling this in them for 2 years. And now we're like, all right, everything we've been talking about, throw that out for a minute. Okay. And I know this is a 1-year measure, but we don't want to waste that year and say, well, even though it's only for a year, let's just let's win now. We've got a really good group that we think we can win with. Let's just do it. Let's not wait for a few years and rebuild. No, let's just win. So that's our focus this year. We think that athletically, we match up with anyone in the conference. We've got, obviously, you know, things that are harder than other teams in the conference, but that's not an excuse. We've got to overcome them, and we got to win.
Right. So, well, one of the things that I've always loved about just our athletes in general is the fight that we have. That, you know, it doesn't matter where we are. Our endurance, the perseverance that we have. That's always been one of my favorite things about all of our sports, and it's really fun to watch. So just continuing and having that attitude is, I think, one of my favorite things about our campus and our programs. So kind of transitioning a little bit, we have some other questions that people wanted to get to, and after these, maybe we'll open up a little bit. One of the questions that we got was, who is your sports hero?
Oh, again, anyone who knows me knows the answer to this is Tom Brady. And everyone's watching, you know, The Last Dance right now, and let me tell you why he's better than Michael Jordan, okay? Because basketball, you see this, one guy can take over a game. They showed it over and over and over again. One guy decided he was going to win. Tom Brady can't do that. Someone's got to block for him. That's why I like football better. Team sport. Like, you have to have other things. And even when I say that, he had years with terrible receivers. He made people good. You know, and you know all the other stuff, the 6th round, the awful picture that they always show of him flabby, and the awful running. I mean, it was terrible. But he just wins. He finds a way. He drags people, and he wins.
He progressed. I mean,
Exactly.
Are you going to transition to a Bucks fan? Like, you're always a Brady fan, or are you a Patriots fan and now you're transitioning to a Bucks fan?
It's going to kill me to be a Bucks fan, but I'm going to have to do it. If I'm going to follow my word, I'm going to have to be a Bucks fan now.
I feel like there's worse places to see an NFL game. I mean, Tampa, it's kind
For
of,
sure.
It's not so bad.
I grew up in Michigan. I mean, grew up in the Lions. I mean,
Yeah, gosh. So one of the other questions that we got was, what are some things you miss about being a teenager?
You know, the funny thing is, my 7-year-old asked me that like a week ago. He's really deep and weird, and like he asks the most bizarre questions. So I'll tell you the answer. I told him, waking up and not having like creaks, like having like so many surgeries and like from all the sports injuries over the years. Like when I wake up, it's like a symphony in my bedroom of like pops and cracks. Like before I get out of bed, my dogs know I'm awake before I get out of bed because everything pops. Like I miss being able to just jump out of bed and be like, all right, not having to stretch and crack everything. Like that's, I do kind of miss that. That would be nice.
Sure. That's definitely understandable. What is your biggest fear, and are you ever going to try and overcome it?
The team asked me this one actually in season. I mean, this is like a lame answer, but like failure is my biggest fear. It keeps me up at night. I don't know. I don't think that I can ever lose that fear. This is a real story that just happened last week. I had a awful sunburn last week to the point where my wife thought I had sun poisoning because I was acting real crazy. But I made a deal with the team to do 100 push-ups a day, which again, not an athlete. I don't do 100 push-ups a day. But I was just feeling miserable and just feeling terrible for myself. And it's 11 o'clock at night, maybe 10:30 somewhere. And I was like, oh my God, I have to do my 100 push-ups because I can't let the team down. So I just dropped down on the ground and do my stupid 100 push-ups so that I can put in our team messenger, yep, I fulfilled my promise. I can't fail my team that I told I would do my stupid 100 push-ups. Like I wouldn't be able to go to bed because I made that promise. I hate the idea of failing people. It just makes my stomach hurt. It gives, that feeling in your stomach when you know you've let someone down. Ugh, it's just awful. I hate it. All the other stuff, I have things I don't like, and I saw there was a question about some of those other ones, but like that's my overarching, like my fear.
I think there was somebody had a question about melted cheese.
Oh yeah.
There was an aversion to that somehow. That worked its way in.
Sorry, I choked.
The melted cheese is getting to you. That just thinking about it. It's funny. Well, one of the other questions that we had in the chat was, and we can open it up here, just engaging alumni and including them and engaging them in the recruiting and mentoring process. You mind touching on that a little bit?
Yeah, I've only been here 2 years. Sorry, choking has really got me here. So my voice is a little froggy. Paul, are you asking, is that part of the same question? Getting better results with the alumni?
I'll unmute you here. Yeah, I'm trying. You're unmuted.
Yeah,
Paul.
That's basically just saying, the strength of a volleyball program that's not pretty well known, especially among older alumni and donors. What are you doing to engage the former players, whether you've been there for 2 years or not? They're still former players that we have contact information for to help you with strengthening the program, mentoring the current players, because the bottom line is it's very hard to be a female athlete on the Citadel campus still. So the more you engage the former players who've been there and done that, the stronger it makes your program, and stronger helps you recruit other players to come to a school that most women don't want to come to, frankly.
Sure. Yeah, so everything with alumni has to go up a chain of command, just like the military, right? We don't necessarily have access to everyone that we would always want to. So unless every single alumni has given me their information, I don't necessarily have it. Does that make sense?
It does. I was just gonna say, so if there's alums out there that want to provide information, reach out and we'll make sure that we get in touch with you so that we can engage you back with the program. We'd love to do that.
But I can tell you some of this stuff. So there are some alumni since I've been here who have, whether they've stopped by, they've sent an email, whatever. The ones that have, we have been in contact, and we've set them up with the players, because I want them our current players to have a connection to our past players. And we've had them sit down and be like, hey, tell them what it was like when you started. And like, so they know what you went through to get them to where they are now. Like the fact that our girls now don't have to cut their hair, tell them what you went through. And like the crazy stuff, like I know, well, I don't know. I know what I heard. I know the stories I've heard of what it was like 18 years ago, but tell them, we had an alumni from California just randomly stop by, and she stopped by practice, and she was telling me a little bit. I'm like, do you have time? And we just stopped practice. I said, go. They sat down in the middle of the gym, and we just didn't have practice. She spent an hour talking to them. To me, that was more worth it than, passing for that hour. So, then from there, she came back a month later. She planned a flight, came out, and spent more time with the girls. So, it's one of those things where if they want to make themselves available, I definitely want to. But like I said, I don't know who they all are or where they all are, and it's not something that I'm necessarily giving all that information to. But again, the ones that I do and that have made themselves available, I do try to. As far in mentoring, the ones that I do know that are more recent, something that I do ask our seniors on their way out to do is write a letter, just kind of a general letter. So just to the freshmen, and it has their information on it, and they just write a advice letter, kind of non-specific, and it can be about anything they want. I just pass that to the freshmen on their way in, and it's got their contact information. And I just ask that freshman to call that person once and just introduce themselves. Hey, I'm a freshman, and yeah, I see you graduated 2 years ago, just so they introduce themselves once to an alumni, and then try to grow that kind of back and forth over the years so that they have a connection. Because, the way that I look at it, yeah, I'm sitting in this chair right now. 30 years from now, I won't be. Like, that's just the reality. My degree says Central Michigan. That's my school that I love. But these girls, their degree says the Citadel. This is their program that I just happen to be running. And, we try and be pretty democratic. They're in on a lot of the decisions we make, but this is their program. So the relationship that I try to do is I try to connect them to each other. So that's kind of where I see my role, as connecting current players to former players. So hopefully that answers it a little bit. If not, email me.
One of the questions that we got in the chat was, what shows are you watching? And when you're not watching The Office, what are you doing?
Oh, good. Yeah, The Office is a show I sleep to every night, so that's solid. I wish I could be more like Brent and say like real smart stuff. Like, oh, I'm watching this documentary about, no, I'm watching 90 Day Fiance, straight garbage television. Before the
we all need mindless. We all need mindless distractions. There's nothing wrong with that.
Before the 90 Days is the best piece of awful television you'll ever watch. I don't really watch a lot of reality TV or at all, but I stumbled upon this show and it is perfection. Outside of that, whatever my kids have on TV is whatever we watch. But we don't really end up watching that much. A lot like what Brent said last week on here, we watch it after they go to bed for like an hour and a half, and then we're too tired from the day anyway, and we fall asleep sitting there. So real exciting stuff.
Another question that we had, well, you know what, follow-up question.
Yeah.
To The Office, since you watch it every single night.
Yeah.
What character
Oh no.
do you relate to most?
Who do I wish I was more like, or who would people think I'm like? Jeez.
Both.
God. I mean, everyone wishes they were like Jim, like he's always got a snappy comeback ready and all that stuff. But what am I more like? I'm probably like Michael. I probably say the dumbest things and everyone's secretly laughing at me.
I feel like there's a little bit in all of us and in all of those characters.
For sure.
Another question that we got in the chat was the playoff game last year was the most exciting environment I've seen in McAllister since the Animal House days of 1978. What can we as alumni and fans do to help recreate that each game this year?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, just come out and be loud and crazy. I mean, our girls are a unique blend because I've coached a lot of teams where when we've gotten crowds, they've gotten nervous, but our girls, they get real, like, they like to show off for cadets. So like when their friends are there, they get real show offy, and not like they're turning to the crowd, like, you know, playing to the crowd, but they really show off when their friends come to games. So that's why when, like, especially when the basketball team, the baseball team come, they sit right there. Whenever I see both those teams come, I'm like, oh, we're about to have a good game. Because even those 20, 30 people, extra people right there, if they're a little bit noisy, it's always going to be fun. But when you have 900, I'm like, oh, this is going to be no problem. So, you know, if you're alumni, go over to the barracks with a bullhorn and just start yelling at the cadets to walk 100 feet over, or go in there and drag them over. Maybe that would work.
I feel like we have a couple people on this call that would actually do that.
Yeah, that might happen. Full rank on them. Come on.
There you go. All right. Were there any other questions that we want to? I think Brownwin, I think that Coach can answer your questions separately. But were there any other questions that we had? Or just go ahead and put them here on the chat. We'll give it a second here.
I think if there were any, where there's that. So, do you want me to tell you the melted cheese thing?
Yes, please.
All right, so I'll tell this story because there's enough people here. So, no one in my family knows why. It's not like, you know, I was beaten with blocks of cheese as a child. No one knows. I have been afraid of melted cheese as long as anyone can remember. Specifically melted. I love regular cheese. Cheese cubes, cheese slices, no problem. As soon as you melt it, it goes wrong. I'm a lot better now, but when I was younger, even into my late 20s, the sight, the smell, anything of melted cheese, I would faint. So, you know, when you miss a step, when you're walking downstairs, that feeling you would get, that's what would happen to me. So I don't think anyone's on here from that team, but I was with a team in California playing, and they ordered something that I didn't know when I was in the bathroom, and I came back and they set a 3-cheese pizza down right in front of me, and I didn't know it because the girl next to me ordered it, and I just fainted at the table in front of the entire team. It was so embarrassing. So that's why for years, anytime people are ordering, I'm just really paying attention to what people order. Because if I know it's coming, I can like psych myself up and prepare. I'm like, all right, cheeseburger's coming. Don't be a wuss. You got this. But I'm much better now, and I'm okay with it. Like, I made a cheeseburger for my wife last week. It was a big deal. Like, on the grill, I put a slice of cheese on, and the whole time I'm like, you've got this, Zelenock. You can do this. You know, put it on a plate and hand it to her and everything. So it was a big moment in my life.
Sounds like baby steps.
Yes.
Baby
Yeah, it was a big deal. There's a, when will this year's schedule be released? No, I didn't answer that. So with everything in flux, we're kind of holding on to it. I did say earlier, the SoCon part is pretty sewed up. It's all the other stuff that's kind of in flux because some of the places we're going to pre-conference don't know what's going on. And then there's teams trying to add matches. We're trying to be as flexible as we can because there's some area teams that belong to different conferences that are going to need help. And they're teams that we normally wouldn't play. And we're trying to be a good neighbor, and we're trying to help and, you know, host them or go to them if it works out. So we are trying to hold it. The SoCon part, like I said, it's pretty sewed up, and we know that part. That's easy. I don't know. Kevin's on here. So at some point, probably in the next few days, I'll give him that SoCon part, and it'll be up to him if he wants to just release that part, and then maybe we'll wait and release the other part later. It'll be all up to Kevin. He's in charge of that stuff. That's above my pay grade.
Okay. Well, we wanted to wrap things up by maybe taking a quick minute to do quick fire questions. So unless there were any other questions, we're just going to do some rapid fire questions, and it's just the first question that comes to Coach's mind. So we've got about 11 questions. Coach, are you ready?
All right. By the way, I saw you, Povey, were in here, by the way, so hi.
Okay. So texting or talking?
Texting.
Favorite day of the week?
Oh, God. Controversial. Monday.
Favorite city in the U.S. besides the one you live?
Houston.
Nickname your parents used to call you.
Just my initials, DZ.
What does a person need to be happy?
Sleep.
Scale of 1 to 10, how good of a driver are you?
9. No moving violations.
No moving. Invisibility or super strength?
Invisibility.
Would you rather be able to speak every language in the world or be able to talk to animals?
Talk to animals.
Favorite holiday?
Oh, I don't like holidays. I know that's weird. I don't like them. Christmas because of my kids.
How long does it take you to get ready?
3 minutes. Brush my teeth, out the door.
Favorite season?
Spring.
What is one of the things you would put on your bucket list?
Skydiving because my wife wouldn't let me because she was pregnant.
And the last question, is it wrong for a vegetarian to eat animal crackers?
It's amazing. That's a great question. No, of course not. Vegetarians. Ugh, what a waste. Be delicious.
Excellent. Well, I think that takes us right about to an hour. So if you want to rewatch this session, it's available on our YouTube channel, Citadel Sports YouTube channel, in 24 hours. So at noon tomorrow, it'll get posted. Next week's guest is baseball coach Tony Skoll. Registration for these dog talks opens on Friday before the dog talk. So it's limited to the first 100 people. So at 10 a.m. registration opens, and that's citadelsports.com/dog talk. Coach, really appreciate your time. Really appreciate everything that you're doing for the program. I hope that you and your family have a safe Memorial Holiday weekend.
Thank you, you too. And tune in next week for Tony. He's going to teach me how to throw a good curveball.
Great. Thanks, everyone, for joining us.